Welcome to the discussion to talk about the budget. Kia ora, Claire. Hey, they often try and come up with like a funny couple of words to kind of get a person's perspective on the budget. How would you describe this budget?
I don't know. I think underwhelming window dressing.
Yep.
Yep. How about you? How did you describe it?
Um, I mean, there is kind of like no sense that there is any type of renewed direction in education.
Mm,
It all felt a little bit bland. Just offering kind of pots of money for various different PLD projects, and nothing really focused on people. Like we kind of like all of the data and from our survey was telling us people wanted to see stuff around ratios, around learning support.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Really caring. It doesn't feel like a caring budget. Let's put it that way. And I think we need to make a bit of a caveat. So first of all, welcome to people as they join us this evening. The idea is that for the next hour, we're going to be having a bit of a chat around our sort of response to the budget. We're going to also invite people wiser than us, particularly this evening. Both of us are a little bit tired, we've worked out. But we're inviting people wiser than us to the discussion. Claire Wells and Jessie Moss are going to be talking and joining us to give a bit more of a perspective on ECE and in the primary space. So also an opportunity. This is a Substack Live, so you're more than welcome to jump into the live chat with your comments and your questions. This will most definitely be an organic, free-flowing unpacking of the budget as it landed today. And I guess before we kick into Claire Wells joining us in a few minutes, I just want to make a couple of comments about this idea of it being a secondary school budget. So
Yeah.
there's very much a sense that the money was being directed that primary, you've had your time. It's now time for secondary to have the lights shone on them and the resources sent our way. And it's really interesting. I've got mixed feelings about all of this, Liam. I have to say that I can't help feeling that a lot of this is a lot of investment in stuff that we didn't necessarily ask for. And when I say that, I don't think any of us questions the need for improvements, strengthening. We should be reviewing the curriculum. We should be reviewing an improvement at improving our assessment framework. But I did some shoddy mathematics this afternoon, and I went through and added up what seemed to be the spending in the secondary space. So we had 90 million that was being invested in NZQA projects, which are obviously around the strengthening and preparation for a change in that space. And there was a little bit of money thrown at AI, which we could say is potentially interesting spending. It was only a drop in the bucket, really, in terms of its amount. But the thing I found quite interesting that when you added up the NZQA, the senior secondary curriculum, and the PLD, we looked closer to 240 million spend on that stuff collectively. And I just wonder, so much of it feels like is actually being invested in sort of rewriting a curriculum, completely destroying one assessment framework and starting on another new one from scratch, and then the PLD that goes with that. And I kept asking myself, what could that money have been spent on had we chosen to review and strengthen the system we have? How much more? Like, is this a fiscally responsible budget for a government that likes to talk about themselves as being fiscally responsible? Is it fiscally responsible to be throwing the baby out of the bath with the bathwater in terms of our secondary qualifications and our secondary curriculum? Could we have been better placed to actually strengthen what we've got? But yes, this is something we need to focus on. And as we see over here, kia ora, Jessie, talking about keeping the lights on budget, only just. So yeah, again, that sense that it's underwhelming. We've got Christina asking a question. Sorry for the tangent. Where was the data info regarding age of school leavers? I found some data, but it only went back to 2014. I am not sure. the answer to that question. I'll have to come back to you, Christina.
Yeah, look, that's a really good point, and it's one of those things where we increasingly hear educators call for a kind of bipartisan education system, and it is specifically to avoid the spend ups that have to come with kind of ideologically repivoting.
Their initiative, a single minister's initiative, and set of KPIs. So it's very much there is a lot of money being sunk into meeting some KPIs that are being delivered at pace, is my takeaway in the secondary space. But of course, it is not just a secondary budget. There is money being spent across the board. But as Jessie has pointed out, it is a lot of business as usual. Very little upticks. The lunch program is continuing. Operations grant.
Yeah, but the thing about the school lunches is that they didn't get a pat on the for kind of renewing that funding for another year. It should be what we fund year on year out of the kind of vote education in general. I mean, we should stop playing politics with whether or not we're going to kind of feed kids at school. It's a bit of a no-brainer. Hey, I've just invited Claire Wells on. Me and her had a tech session yesterday, and so I think this is.
There she is. She's coming in. She's beaming in. Hello, Claire. How are you?
Hi,
Long time no see.
I'm really well. Lovely to see you, and you, Liam. Kia ora.
Good to Claire. If this was any other day, we could have spent some time delving into the ins and outs of the teaching council.
Yeah,
we are
that would have been
with the three of us on here. Woo.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, look, we were really keen to hear from somebody working actively in the early childhood space, and so we're really pleased you could come along and share a couple of insights around what you took from the budget, and I guess how it kind of fits in with the kind of larger ECE landscape right now.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's great, and it's lovely to see you both again. I'm coming to you from Wellington. I'm in quite a dark little space, so I'm sorry about that, but we'll do our best. I just hope that the connection holds out too. But so they're my caveats. Disappointing today, really disappointing. There was an overall 1.5% increase to ECE funding. Kindergarten gets a little bit less, and that's to do with the settlement of the KTCA. But overall, it was a 1% increase, which effectively just leaves ECE treading water. We've had very low increases over the last few years. Year on year, it's been inflation's kind of outstripped the increases in funding. So services are really, really pressure, under a lot of pressure. And at the same time, you've got the Associate Minister of Education, David Seymour, who has got responsibility for early childhood, taking a hard look at the early childhood sector and the regulations. And so we've had numerous pieces of legislation go through over the last sort of 2 years. We've seen the regulations change the purpose of early childhood regulations to sort of focus more in on service providers and businesses rather than the interests of children. So our landscape feels a bit precarious. So a disappointing budget coming in on the back of a series of changes and shifts and changes over the last couple of years feels really hard for us today. And the worry is that, of course, as you know, I mean, the government puts in early childhood services are bulk funded. So that funding from government comes in as a one shot. There is no more anywhere else. If those increases to bulk funding aren't sufficient, then services have to find funds from elsewhere. The other place they find funds is from parent fees, and you start to get this tension between, inadequate government funding and a tension to find more funding, but also to parent fees, and the numbers just don't add up. So the worry is that we could see that more costs are put onto parents, which will make it unaffordable at a time when they're sort of facing huge increases, in household budgets and so on. Any further increase in ECE would just be, too much for most people. So the only other place that you can actually look for savings, if you like, is around, what you actually provide in your service. And the big ticket item there, of course, is staffing. And one of the critical things that is happening at the moment is a review. And one of the things is around a review on qualifications. So if anything should happen there to reduce the qualification in early childhood education, then you start to see some of the numbers maybe sort of making sense to people who are looking to make, to increase their profits from early childhood, but also to actually look for savings in their service provision. So there's a lot at play here. The budget is one piece of a broader puzzle, and we're right in the middle of it at the moment. It feels like we're regressing 30 years, the discussion that's going on, the fact that the sort of the purpose of early childhood has kind of shifted. We've got more discussion around the provision of early childhood education is about to meet a labour market demand. We actually we moved on from that argument in the 80s, and here we are again. So the interests of children aren't front and centre for policy.
No.
Not front and centre.
That feels like a comment that we've had across the board, actually.
Absolutely. They're just not there. And, and so that's the really worrying thing. It's a deeply disappointing budget. It's not kind of getting us ahead. And in fact, it's leaving us kind of exposed to some of the, to other ways of services meeting their costs, and that could actually start to undermine quality.
Yeah. And what was your sense in the ECE space, what people were hoping to get out of the budget? Were there areas, initiatives, needs that have been left unmet in this budget?
Many.
Yeah.
Early childhood is often sort of tagged on, if at all. Last year, there was some increased funding for learning support and so on. We still need to kind of see that rolling out through ECE. But I think I think the general wish, I suppose, from the sector was that that funding would increase so that actually we could afford all of the things that we know actually add up to quality. And a big part of that is making sure that we can pay for qualified teachers. The pay parity. Pay parity was, introduced for kindergarten a long time ago. The rest of the sector was kind of coming up to speed. Hopes were dashed last year around all of that, and to the extent actually that if you're a reliever in an early childhood service, the service doesn't have to pay you the same rate as they would for a permanently appointed teacher. So pay parity doesn't apply to relievers. So that exacerbates a situation for qualified staff, coming into services and so on. So it's kind of, so people were hoping that the funding would be sufficient to address some of those issues, to address the professional needs of teachers, to address ratios for, to increase and have better ratios in early childhood services, to support the professionalism of the teaching workforce, and to actually be able to provide a service that means parents actually can afford to attend and participate. Because that's the big worry, is that, as costs increase,
people disengage. It's that part of it. It's not the compulsory school system. And at a time where we're supposedly so concerned about numeracy and literacy and that sort of stuff, we know those foundations are often established in ECE.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah. And the evidence is so clear, really, really clear about how that sets children up, really well. And it does seem an irony, when we hear the minister talking about we wanting children to succeed and we want to put, all of this effort in to support them to do that. Yet it only starts after, when they start school. In fact, and as we all know, if we start a bit earlier, it makes a big difference. So
Claire,
the logic's not there.
Claire, what's your sense of the drivers behind the reduction in qualifications? Is it a kind of pathway to pay cheaper wages, or is it actually
Is it David Seymour?
um,
Full stop.
a workforce response to be able to get more ECE teachers trained by lowering the bar?
Yep. It's all of those things that you've just said, really. I mean, there's always been this debate about, and in fact, it goes right back to the 80s, and you can see it in Treasury briefing papers. Don't increase funding to early childhood because it'll increase the professionalism, and then therefore it will cost us.
What a horrifying idea, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's written in black and white. It's astonishing.
Heaven forbid.
And
looking after our youngest people.
I know. So, and in a way, that view is still there. It still sits there. And so, because there is a thing that if people are more highly qualified, then you pay them more. Now, if you're trying to either maximize your profits or keep your costs low, then you'll want to sort of resist that. I think sort of sitting next to that, there's also a perception that maybe young children don't really need qualified teachers. They just need, people who like working with
all
them
the time. Because
after all, they're just playing,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I certainly was under the impression that we'd gone way beyond those kind of comments many, many years ago, but they seem to be resurfacing. And I think the thing around qualifications is very much, it's part of keeping costs down. It's also part of it's also addressing a doubt that some might have about whether you actually need a fully qualified workforce or not.
Mm.
Now, the evidence, if people just want to have a look at the evidence, it's absolutely crystal clear. So there's no doubt. So it really comes down to ideology, really, And I think the fact that the narrative now has kind of shifted from the interests of children to the interests of providers, that it's about a labour market demand, not a child's right to education, because those sorts of stories are starting to shift and change, then that kind of suits the argument really about, well, do you actually need all qualified staff, Anyway, so we're back at, it's 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, there was agreement that that people employed as teachers and teacher-led services and early childhood education would be qualified the same as primary teachers, secondary teachers. That foundational teacher education qualification would be the same in ECE, and it's been back and forth over the decades. Nearly get there. It's been an aim and 2 strategic plans so far, but we just kind of roll it out and start to actually build up the workforce to be 100% qualified teachers. And then the next government will say, actually, no, we're cutting the funding to that, or we're removing the incentives for that to happen. And so we're still not there yet after nearly 3 decades. But that is still the aim of the sector, is to have 100% qualified workforce, and that's a critical issue for us at the moment.
And is the other large issue in ECE connected around our ratios increasingly out of step with student need? I mean,
Absolutely.
Early childhood won't be any different from primary and secondary around that kind of diversity of need coming through our students, but our ratios are pretty out of step with a lot of OECD countries, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And I think, and we have been criticised for that. I mean, the ratios have altered over the years. That's true, but we're still not at a place where it's actually optimum for children's learning. And as you say, Liam, there's children. There's lots more complexities these days, and we need to be able to actually be there for children when they need us to be there. And if you haven't got the right ratios, then you just can't do it. And that's an opportunity missed for that child. And it's incredibly frustrating for teachers not to be able to actually provide what they know children need, because they simply haven't got, sufficient people on the ground.
Given the kind of landscape and the way the election's shaping up, what are you kind of hoping to hear from opposition parties by way of policy?
Well, we're hoping to actually get back to, a coherent plan around having 100% qualified teaching workforce, well supported as a profession. We're hoping to have so some good policies about making that a very clear objective in a reasonable time frame, not an extended time frame, because that's been part of the problem, I think, over the years, is that it's sort of taken us 10 years to get somewhere. We actually need to do it in a shorter period of time. So we need the resource and the willingness to do that in a short space of time. And we need some policies that actually support people who currently work in the sector to actually become qualified teachers. So that's a big one that we would be looking for in the election in party policies. Having a coherent, and that's part of a coherent workforce strategy, of course, that's actually looking right across the board, looking not only at qualifications of teachers, but having a look at leadership, having a look at PLD, having a look at, building up all of those, elements that we know sort of create an effective and sustainable workforce. Ratios, of course, is a big one. And also, and all of that, and so funding to support those quality factors, if you like, the qualifications, the ratios, and actually having good group sizes. We want to be able to actually operate with children, having children in appropriate group sizes. All of those things mean if services are funded for those, then the costs to parents will be lower. And that's the other big ticket item, is to make sure that services actually meet communities' needs in a genuine way, and that they're affordable, and that we're looking after, language and culture, and that we're looking after, all of those, developmental aspects of children's learning. And we've got fabulous environments, and and it's actually easy to get there, so, there's a fabulous early childhood service in your local community, in your local neighbourhood. That's kind of where we want to be. And so political parties, what we'd like to see is, what is their plan to get us to that space? How do we get there? And we want it to be clear, coherent, and timely.
And so if we were to round this up in terms of ECE, what's your takeaway sort of headline for the ECE budget this year?
Disappointing.
Yeah. We're all a bit underwhelmed, aren't we? There's a theme.
Totally underwhelmed. Yeah, do better.
Yeah.
I mean, governments choose where to spend their money, and they could have chosen to spend more money in ECE, and they didn't. And that's really disappointing. And the consequences of that could be really devastating.
Yeah. And as we say, you fund what you value, you resource
Absolutely.
what you value. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I really like that narrative around connecting politics to kind of choices and decisions being made, because you can point at all of the tax cuts for tobacco lobbyists, and increasing fees for those people on boards, and each one of those is a kind of conscious decision that's gone through cabinet. In the same way, not viewing ECE as an investment in the future, it's another thing that I've chosen to do.
Yeah. Well, the total amount of funding to ECE is almost the same amount of funding that is in the pot for the tax breaks for landlords. There you go.
Says a lot, really, doesn't it?
Hey, Claire, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciated somebody coming on and delivering an ECE perspective in ways that that Claire and I can't. And so it's been great to have you with us, and looking forward to hearing from you another time.
Yeah, great. Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Kia ora. Thank you. And so I believe, are we moving across quite swiftly, Liam, to our next guest, or is there a bit of a space where we are high check tonight? We are inviting people on. They're joining us. No. They're leaving us. We are dynamic.
Yeah,
it's an interesting exercise.
What did you take away from that?
Just again that it's a budget of disappointments and underwhelm. And if you think of ECE as the foundation to our education system, literally age-wise, it's really disappointing. And I think it's one of those things. It's not it's not a big ticket item. It's not one of the election issues, so it's not going to get the funding and the money because they want to put the money where the sales pitch is, and at the moment it's not around that. And it does say a lot about what we value in terms of real investment in those earliest years of our young people. Like a few people were saying, you wouldn't want the same rules to apply to engineers, wouldn't want the same rules to apply to nurses, that just because they're looking after the youngest, that somehow they should be less qualified. Quite the opposite.
Yeah, it does make me wonder, though, whether or not the national government see cost of living as an issue in the lead up to this election, because the kind of entry point in for ECE there is all around the fees being charged to parents.
Yeah.
And so if they saw cost of living as a significant increase and wanted to do something about it, you'd almost think they would be coming in and targeting that.
I've just had a light bulb moment.
Oh, here
What
we
we
go.
actually
Right,
need
yeah.
is we actually need some testing in ECE. So we could get some data points of around interventions you could improve on and get some really good results and some headlines out of. And then we might actually fund it, because you need to have really qualified people then delivering the curriculum that prepares them for their year sub 2 end of year test. We could do the SMART tool, expand it down, need
Clear,
some
if
league
in next year's
tables.
budget they roll out the smart tool to 3-year-olds, I'm going to be plunging at you. So I'm going to bring Jesse in.
Yeah. Get
Are
someone
you,
far more sensible to join the conversation.
are you feeling a bit? Are you feeling a bit upset that the smart tool's been rolled out to year 11, and so
Yeah.
it's
No,
others?
I don't get to do it up into the senior school. Really missing out.
Mm.
So thank you. Save us all, Jesse. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. So many people will know the fabulous Jessie Moss. I was giving a shout out to your reels the other day. Your explainers are just bang on. And
very
so,
good.
so looking forward to having your insights here this evening. I have no doubt you'll be far more insightful and coherent than the two of us this evening.
We'll see.
Yeah, we had that question come up earlier around if there was kind of new money for charter schools in the budget, and my understanding that there wasn't, which means we'll be working off the same figures from last year's budget, which was kind of 4 years worth of funding. I think it would have been a bit of a tall order to increase funding when they haven't even spent last year's money, because they're expecting all of these public schools that would want to become super innovative by turning them into charter schools. Turned out that didn't happen.
They didn't knock down the door.
Well, no, it turns out not so many people want to convert to a charter school, and but don't worry, because we've got Aero are going to have $12 million to stand up their schools of concern system. And no doubt we'll see some of those schools of concern being pushed
some
into
chains of
schools.
academies ready and waiting with open arms.
That's
to
right.
Save us all.
That's right. Yeah. And it
And
was
do you think that it is likely to come through just one or two large changes? Because obviously the sector reform bill's going through Parliament now. It's going to allow the likes of McDonald's and Burger King to come in and buy up schools. Do you reckon that's going to be the entry point in which we will start to see the acceleration of school conversions, because they'll have the infrastructure to kind of roll them out quickly?
Yeah, well, certainly in the system reform bill, there's the changes to charter school provisions whereby you can have a literal chain of charter schools.
Yeah.
So you can have your Liam Rutherford school in every single centre. And not only that, you could have Liam Rutherford's structured literacy school in one, and then you could have one that focuses on maths acceleration in Palmerston North, if you liked. So definitely the scope broadens and widens and makes it much easier to set up charter schools for different reasons. And I do have a very serious concern about the schools of concern, that there's a very high chance that those are the schools that will be pushed into charterisation.
Yeah, and I've been banging the drum a bit over the last couple of weeks around my real concerns around the Aero, and I don't know if you've seen the guide that went out to parents and whānau that
Mm,
was it read like
mm,
a school selection guide.
mm,
It read
mm,
like a how to avoid a bad school, because everything was framed around this is what a good school does. This is how you
mm,
pick a good school.
yeah.
And it was really disheartening because it sort of spoke to a future where school choice was more of a thing. I'm
Mm,
really nervous about the voucher system still living. I know that David
mm,
Seymour has actually spoken openly about this idea of having a voucher system that would allow for school choice within zone
mm,
areas. And
mm,
I think if you start joining the dots, don't make me put my tin hat on, but you start joining the dots around schools of concern, around
mm,
chains of charter
mm.
schools, around all of these things. And it points in a really scary direction in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know the feeling of starting to feel like a conspiracy theorist because
Mm.
I often feel similarly. But, when we're seeing now that we've had um, control of setting professional, the standards of the teaching
Been handed
profession
to the
have
ministry. Yeah.
been
Yeah.
lifted and shifted into the ministry. And someone else might have seen this, but so far as I saw, when the system reform bill was put forth in front of us, and then we had regulatory impact statements, nothing in there said that there was going to be um, close to $18 million needing to be set aside, which is what we're seeing in the budget now, to set up the education workforce professional standard settings within the Ministry of Education. So not only do they not, I mean, the Teaching Council was running it fine. They had all
Yeah.
this, they had the
Yeah.
systems, the capability, the capacity, the profession led directly into that. We've got sort of no real guarantee that now that it's sitting in the ministry that we'll have the same level of influence and impact of setting our own professional standards, and it's going to cost close to $18 million. That money could go a very long way in operational budgets in primary schools with now.
It's almost the entire grading budget of the Teaching Council. How are they planning to spend $18 million?
Who knows? Who knows?
Some very glossy brochures that are
That's
going to get
right.
sent out to every school.
Yep. And,
Maybe some tick charts. We could have some star charts that go up in
yeah,
every staff room.
yeah. And it's
I'm full of
operational
great
funding,
ideas today.
and
Clear
because
at
it's
the next year's
operational
budget,
funding,
they
it's
announced a set of star charts for school
For
councils.
staff.
oh,
You've got
that's
to worry
right.
about it, though. You really do need to worry about it. So, in terms of primary, like this felt like I'm skimming again. I was actually skimming again and again because I'm struggling to find anything that
Mm,
feels like it's, above and beyond business as usual. Yep, there was like a
mm,
2% increase to school ops. Whoop,
yep.
woo.
Yes,
There
that's
was the renew of healthy school lunches.
mm.
Ready to learn. What's that about? 12.1 million. Ready to learn. Do you know what that is all about?
Ready to Learn that's targeted at children who are in state care, I
Yeah.
believe.
So
Who
it's not a mainstream.
No, so that's
No,
very targeted, and yeah, I don't know much about that myself.
but there's very little. Is it just me? It's like it's missing
No,
the page. I know they did say it
yeah,
was all secondary, but
it definitely is a keep the lights on budget, I would say, is how I would describe it. There's lots of little top ups here and there to
yeah,
account for sort of volume pressure, which is, basically code for we're going to, put a bit more money in because more children need it, which is obviously the right thing to do, but it's not
yeah.
exactly, yeah. Um, what else is interesting in there? As a musician, I found this curious, and I'm going to be watching this space. Music kits for years 0 to 8. I'm interested in this. There's only 5 million in it, and there'll be a maximum of $2,000 to each state and state integrated school for music equipment. So you might be able to buy a half decent guitar with that, or a whole lot of very average ukuleles. I
Some
mean,
recorders and textbooks.
from recorders. I mean, fine,
Yeah.
great, but I would be interesting to know if they've spoken with music teachers about this and what they would like to see. But I don't know. Found that interesting. Um,
Yeah.
There was the investing in primary learning, over 131 million for further literacy and maths support. Is
Yeah.
that beyond the announcements we had the other day, or is it just
No, that is the
that is
announcement.
reframing? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as we have heard time and time again, and with the launch of Aotearoa Educators Collective,
Hey,
hey, here we
Yeah.
go.
Great reading right there.
Still
Well,
beyond
grim reading.
capacity learning support in Aotearoa, so released
Yeah.
1 year on from the first beyond capacity report. Teachers are saying loud and clear over and over again, we do not need more workbooks, we do not need more maths and literacy initiatives that we have not asked for. We need people. We want people in our classrooms. One very quick way to really help what's happening in classrooms, particularly in learning support, is to put a teacher aide in every classroom. That would immediately take a huge amount of pressure off. And as it stands, schools are struggling to pay for teachers out of their operational budgets. And teacher aides are the only kind of optional thing, I guess, within a operational budget that can be played around with. So, it's, school leaders will look at the budget each year and they have to pay for 99% of the things that are in the operational budget to literally keep the lights on, to keep toilet paper in your school, all that kind of thing. And so now we are seeing sausage sizzles, cake stalls, and all that more and more to pay for our teacher aides. And schools are choosing between, new carpet and teacher aides. So we need people, not workbooks.
Yeah.
but also though, it directly affects the types of wages that teacher aides can get offered, because principals are in that really challenging position around do you kind
That's
of
right. Yeah.
be somebody they're worth and
Mm.
decide budget for them to develop themselves into the future,
Yep.
or do you look to squeeze another couple of hours out of them?
Mm.
And I mean, I don't envy them having to make that decision.
No. Yep.
And it's why we
Mm.
need to get on and do that last part of the teacher aid pay equity settlement and centrally fund teacher aid
That's right.
hours and
Yep.
just take the plus that would also fix what is super annoying around the government only part funding hours. Every time the
Mm.
minister gets up there and talks about
Mm.
how many hundreds of thousands of hours she's introduced into the system, those are only part paid for.
That's right. Yeah. And that's not something it's obviously a sort of detail that's a bit in the weeds for the public, but yeah, it sounds really good on paper. But and it's sort of like this thing too, where even if they might increase the amount that they contribute. Schools can't necessarily match that contribution rate. So in real terms, it might mean absolutely nothing to a school that there's been this sort of injection of operational spending. If they don't have it in the budget, they don't have it in their budget. Like that's the end of it. And it's just completely unacceptable for our most vulnerable learners as well to have that insecurity of teacher aides, because that relational space for them really is what makes things work, and that's where they do their best learning. And there are situations where children don't know who their teacher aide is going to be after the holidays because that teacher aide only has 10-week contract.
And that lack of security just makes it impossible to get a really skilled workforce, a secure skilled workforce, because you're basically relying on people that are in a position to dip in and dip out of, or on standby. Like, if we want a really robust, supported, workforce, they need to be invested in the same way teachers are invested in.
100%. Absolutely. And I think something that I found very interesting, and I could be really beating, going right down the wrong track here, but I was very interested in the fact that the minister did a release, as she does on the beehive.gov.nz website today, and she did one in English and she did one in Te Reo Māori, and I thought that's interesting. And as someone who has a reasonable grip on Te Reo, I thought I'm going to do a little comparison here. And could give some leeway perhaps to the translator, but there's a part in there where she makes something sound like it's a delivery of something that's going to directly to kura kaupapa and Māori medium, but in fact it's for both schools. And I don't know if that's an intent to mislead and make it sound like there's a big injection coming for kura kaupapa and Māori medium or not, or if that's just
translation error.
Given she is the minister that has single-handedly done the most ever for Māori in education,
she has, closely followed by David Seymour.
I suspect you are misunderstanding the situation, because if there was something in there, she would have been shouting from the rooftops about it.
Yes, that's right. Yes, indeed. And actually, on that point, there is not a single thing that I can see in the summary of initiatives that is dedicated to tamariki Māori, to akonga Māori at all. Not a single initiative. So there's a big injection to school property, but that's for English medium, Māori medium works, and it's a drop in the bucket after years of underinvestment by the National Party, through the early 2000s.
It is just one of those funny budget papers. I keep going skimming, going, have I missed something? Have I missed something? There doesn't seem to really be anything here. Yeah. It's like there's a lot of numbers and a lot of words, but not a lot of actual.
Do you know if the music kits are going to be delivered as a kind of $2,000 bonus to schools, or is it going to be
like just a House of Science issue?
It's one company gets this kind of generous government contract.
Yeah, it says this initiative provides funding for music kits, which to me reads as there are kits available, up to $2,000, which is not much. I mean, it's, I don't think any school would sniff at having, but it sounds to me like it's a music kit that's some kind of pre-packaged something, I would imagine. And
but nothing that's up on Gets or up on anywhere that we've seen.
No, not that I've noticed. And it's the only, I think it's the only thing I've spotted in there that's to do with the arts.
Actually, I mean, it would have been really good to just give schools $2,000 and ask them to go and kind of spend it on the arts curriculum.
Yeah.
I mean, that isn't a huge amount of money, but at least schools could have tailored something towards their local curriculum or their kind of term planning, or something that connects to them, as opposed to this kind of simplistic way of viewing teaching and learning, where you just kind of dump a workbook or dump a kit on a school and walk away because you've now done primary.
Could have been one less sausage sizzle.
Yeah. Again, it's a funny old budget where it feels like it's not going to people at all, really.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a real absence of resourcing human beings.
Yeah.
A novel idea, but it feels like a particular shift on this one.
Yeah. And this is possibly slightly off topic, but I just earlier this week I read a really, really amazing article by Tina Ngata, who's someone I hold in high regard, and she has crunched some really interesting numbers just in regards to the rhetoric that we constantly get told that there isn't enough money. And so therefore, we only have $2.1 billion that we can possibly spend in education for the next 4 years. And it was interesting to hear earlier that, that there's the same kind of amount of money has gone off to landlords as is in the ECE budget. But, Tina Ngata's done this amazing number crunching where she's found that there could have been another $10 billion in our overall budget had we not restored landlord interest deductibility, changed the bright line test, had we not changed the income tax threshold for higher earners, and so on and so forth. So there's all these things, these really big ticket things of lost potential revenue that this government has made a very deliberate decision around, that they didn't have to. They didn't have to allow all that money to continue to travel upwards towards people who don't need it. Meanwhile, we've got families that are struggling to afford to go to ECE, and our schools are still having to have sausage sizzles to pay for teacher aid. It's entirely by choice and it's entirely by design, and it just we're always told we can't have the nice things. We can have the nice things. We can have the essential good. We're not even asking for the shiny things, We're asking for the absolute fundamental basics for our kids, and we are told we can't have it. but that's not
And,
true.
and there is an economic argument to do it around wanting to have the entire population of students going through our education system in the best possible place
Mm,
to be able to contribute to the economy.
mm,
But the ideology is all about creating kind of winners and losers and entrenching privilege.
yep.
Uh, but it was similar to the point Claire Wells made around these are all conscious decisions.
Mm,
And what's playing out in education just tends to be where you see it very starkly.
yes, and I think there's a fair whack of money just on talking about preparing children for work, sort of heading up towards like trades, which I don't think, and I'm sure Claire, you've got way more
Mm.
comment on this than I would, and I wouldn't say that that's entirely a terrible thing, but it just feels like there's this real shift towards allowing the interests of business to come in and start dictating what
Absolutely, because someone pointed out
curriculum is
that
going
there
to look
isn't.
like and what those programs need to look like,
Yeah,
and for the kids to then go directly into those trades, rather than we want kids who have curiosity and are creative thinkers and can kind of go anywhere rather than just here. Yeah.
yeah. Because
Mm,
PPA, I saw Chris Abercrombie had put up a bit of a post around the PPA response to the budget, and there was the comment that whilst there is the investment in the infrastructure around vocational, there doesn't seem to be the investment of the upskilling of teachers in that space, which suggests, are we
yep.
going to a market model? Is it going to be,
Mm,
pushing kids out of school? I also think as well, like to come back to we did the AEC survey, budget survey that Liam has managed over the past. Our educators' top priority was consistent learning support. 64.7 was the real high
yep.
level, top level thing. At
Mm,
the moment, the top level thing that things have been sent on is NZQA and 90 million for co-requisite administration.
mm,
Rebuilding an entire secondary assessment framework and rebuilding an entire secondary phase 5 curriculum at pace.
mm,
And I still keep coming back to how that money, that 200 and however many millions of dollars that's been like, yes, invest in secondary. Yes.
mm,
Review the secondary curriculum and improve upon it. Yes. Invest in NCEA and strengthen it. But we did not need to spend all of that money. Exactly. The money could have well been spent on teacher aides instead. It could have been spent on learning support. And
mm,
actually, if we had done a steadier, more staged review and strengthening of the senior, developing the senior curriculum and reviewing and improving on NCEA,
mm,
we really could have rediverted those funds. There's some serious dollars that's been pushed up into the
yeah.
secondary curriculum budget that could have been better spent on ensuring our teachers and our students were supported in the way because we all know, any of us that's on the ground, we are seeing more
Mm,
young people with more complex needs and behavioural issues and,
mm,
struggles and regulation issues than we ever have, that
yeah.
we
Mm,
should be directing our funding at.
mm,
Can I tell you a little bit of a story? This will crack you up because this involves you guys, because you were solving it all. So we had the SPANS conference and the minister came to speak to us on the last day. And in her messaging, she talked about the fact that there was two things that I want to share with you that involve primary. The fact that because you're all now doing structured literacy and your more explicit approach to mathematics, all of the students we find with numeracy and literacy by the time they come to high, you will have actually fixed them all and solved it.
You're
And
welcome.
actually, they'll be fine going into more high stakes assessment and exams. But also, the other thing she talked about was the fact that actually, because there was concerns around external assessments and exams being the focus, that actually it's okay because young people are now going to be getting tested so often from very early on in their schooling that they're going to come through really exam ready because, this is just going to be what they've done for so long. So I want to thank you, primary teachers. You have
Is the aim,
solved.
It's the age
everything.
of year that kids don't do as well in exams because
They
they
haven't been,
aren't
you haven't been
cultured enough.
examining them enough at primary school.
No,
It's
we need some
I
more
think I
emotional
often
tech.
thought that all of my problems that we see at secondary down to the stuff that you weren't doing. You
Yeah,
weren't structuring your literacy, you weren't
no.
being explicit with your maths, and you certainly weren't testing them enough.
Well, I do believe that in the new package, the 131 million, whatever it was, that's been thrown at, that was pre-announced, that there's, if I'm not mistaken, there's some new checks in there for us to look forward to. Some new something at year 5 or something like that.
Yeah, that was the mess, the times table test.
That's right. Times
Mhm.
table and division test that I know you've been screaming out for in your classroom, William, that you
Yeah,
just need a official test and a new year 2 literacy check covering reading, comprehension, writing, spelling, and basic punctuation, joining the existing year 2 maths check. So there you go. Clear?
Yeah. Well, this is a statement. She talked about the need to sit exams and that this was the reason she had introduced early tests and exams so they can be exam ready. It'll no longer be a big deal as they have been doing it their entire lives.
Great. And it's really good to have children super, super exam ready because
Yeah,
that's what real life is like.
yeah.
We just
So
do
many
exams all the
exams.
time. Even
I
at
do them
university,
daily.
it's just exams all the time.
Oh, well, I mean, I shouldn't be sarcastic. It's a very low form of humour, but it is frustrating to feel like that um, the money is just going in the wrong direction, and it's going on silver bullet solutions, one size fits all, standardisation, and compliance and
mm,
accountability focus. It's like we have been turned into a really big business, and someone has a set of KPIs that they've got to meet, and I think there's a fundamental reframing around education that has just been happening, chipping away, chipping away,
Hmm.
chipping away. But if we zoom out,
Hmm.
we have gone shooting back to an industrial model at light
Hmm.
speed. And we're getting all the different components, and that's what's getting invested in. This
Mm,
budget is
absolutely.
an industrial education model budget,
Mm.
in my mind.
Yeah, and I'd say there's sort of the shifting towards like the monitoring focus that goes with that too
Mm,
as well, right? And we see that with the SMART tool. And we're hearing already, and I know that PPTA have been doing a lot of work in this space, and we're hearing anecdotally through NZI, Te Reo Roa membership too, that just it's been thrust on them. No one asked for the SMART tool. We already have PATs. There's already the ES tool. Um, and schools are really, really struggling with it for a whole variety of reasons. It's like administratively heavy. There's a lot to get your head around. Actually, administering the assessments are clumsy and awkward in both secondary and primary. And that there are just some really basic issues already popping up around the results that it's spitting out, the
yeah,
inconsistency, that it's not reliable with what it's, teachers are going through and checking and going, actually, that's definitely not the assessment that I would have made of that piece of work in secondary. And we're seeing that, children in primary school, even trying to navigate the online or the written, that SMART can provide, that in itself requires a whole lesson just to even take the assessment in the first place. And now we have in the budget, the student monitoring and assessment reporting tool is expanding up to year 11. So currently it's for years 3 to 10, and we've always known that within the contract it has the capability, Janison, who run the tool, have the capability to extend it to every single year group for every single subject area, learning area.
mm.
So it
It'd
could
be
be hideously big.
It would be really interesting to do a breakdown of the amount of money that's going to external agencies in this budget or in more recent budgets and,
Mm,
like
well,
stuff that's
yeah,
contracted out.
yeah,
definitely.
There's
With
a huge proportion.
the SMART tool last year when it first landed in the budget 2025, it was close to 10 million capital expenditure. So that immediately $10 million went offshore to Janison, the Australian
Yeah.
company. And then there was like, I think the total budget currently for the 10-year cost of running the smart tool is $177 million. It's a humongous investment.
Yeah.
And there is very little, we have no sort of assurance around what happens with that data that go, like this backup data capability that.
And we don't have oversight or insight, or at least I haven't,
No.
maybe I haven't delved enough in terms of NZQA and who they'll be working with.
Mm.
You know, as
Mhm.
things move online, as things change in the co-requisite space, as things change in the whatever. I mean, we still don't know what the exams look like. Like I've heard they might not all necessarily look like exams as we think about them. You know, like who will be building those platforms and mechanisms, you know? Like it'd be a really interesting study. So what's your takeaway all up? What's your headline? I think you've...
Sorry, before you do your concluding question,
Yes.
just wanted to touch on initial teacher education, because am I right in thinking we have seen another expansion of the
on-site training program,
on-site
0.6
training
million.
providers?
Yeah.
Yes. And
4%.
so, yeah, I think there's a real risk there to initial teacher education provision in universities. And yeah, I think that's the main risk there. And we know that one of the beautiful things about having those initial teacher education in universities is that closeness to current research and practice. And I think it's another thing that's being done to the sector.
Oh, look, I think that that we should be very concerned around the removal of ITE from universities. It's the last kind of place where there is kind of critical analysis as to what's going on in schooling. And given the track record of this government, it would be so much more appealing to find a private provider who is just going to deliver exactly what they want without any type of critique around what's happening. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised.
Is 2026, 27 the year of Crimson ITE launching? It's only a matter of time.
Oh, look,
I'm placing my bets here.
And they're capable of growing. And so, yeah, I reckon sadly that's a huge part of our landscape moving forward. And one of the things that kind of really frustrates me, because I think IT is just such a cornerstone of the sector, is the way that universities have been scapegoated for some genuine concerns around whether or not our new graduates are ready to kind of hit the ground running. And it feels like all of the blame is being put onto universities as opposed to looking at the entire kind of pathway to get somebody fully registered. And it's like we haven't been willing to adapt the entire education system as kids have become more complex.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely heard from some ITE professors and doctors who are teaching how do you become a history teacher, how do you become social science teacher and whatnot, and they are feeling deeply conflicted and unsure about how they will teach their students next year with the curriculum they have in front of them, going, when they know this curriculum is not pedagogically sound, how do I deliver this to students in a way where they are being critical about it, but I'm also being told this is the curriculum that they then have to go out and teach and use. It's very difficult. So, as you say, Liam, much tidier to have private providers who will do that without questioning what they are teaching their students. And zoom out at that really big picture level, if you've got private providers who pump out the kinds of students unquestioning with the curriculum as the minister would like it to be, and then that connects directly to some teaching standards that also sit under direct ministerial control.
And that stuff, those things could change. I'm really concerned that we'll see the teaching standards change, and we'll see professional standards change. I wonder if our ability to speak out freely may be under threat in the longer term. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, and definitely because we have Te Tere Te Waitangi as like the POS standard at the moment, I think that's deeply under threat now, sitting in the ministry. I think we can't trust that at all.
I think it's more likely that rather than just like a blanket ban on educators speaking out, there's going to be like an actual list. So off the top of my head, I can probably list out 10 people who will be on that list.
Oh dear. Oh wow. That'd be an awesome list. We'll go have a party. Excellent. As we round it out, I wanna lay a challenge to our people that are on the line. So there's 37 people there at the moment. So while Jessie is gonna give us a bit of a roundup in terms of her headline for the budget, I want to know, everyone that's listening here today, what your headline has been for today's education budget. What's one line you would few words, a line. You could write a poem, a haiku. Share with us your summary, your takeaway. Bonus points if it is a haiku. Okay, we'll get a shout out. But what was your summary and takeaway of this year's budget? And while they're doing that, Jessie, take it away. What do you think?
Well, I started by calling it the keeping the lights on budget, because I think that's what it does. It kind of keeps schools ticking along, keeps things just gripping on. But I think perhaps it could be more aptly termed the sausage sizzle budget, the cupcake budget, the cake stall budget, something like that.
Yeah.
It leaves education still in a desperate and dire position.
Yeah, just because I know that we are pushed for time, and I know you're trying to wrap us up, Claire, but like I mean, we follow this stuff like in and out every day, but for like principals and teachers who are just doing their craft day to day, what do you think they'll take away from the budget?
I just don't think they'll see much material change, and they'll see some new things thrust upon them that they don't necessarily see coming down the line. And I think that those, as you say, when you're just doing your work, and then suddenly there's this new thing, and suddenly there's some other thing that you have to attend to, or a new kit turns up that you're supposed to use. And they're just not things that educators have asked for. Like, teachers are extremely clear. I cannot tell you how many reports and media releases and interviews and articles constantly that just say we want people, we just want more people, we want grades, we want to value education, we want to make sure everyone has secure work, we want to restore pay equity, we want to uphold Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We're waiting for the imminent arrival of the Waitangi Tribunal report around the removal of Section Te Tiriti from Section 127 and the decimation of Te Mātai Aho, and we want quality early childhood education, 100% qualified teachers. Like, those messages are loud and clear. We have had joint letter after joint letter. It's not like the government does not know what teachers want, what principals want. They just ignore it.
Yeah, exactly. And as we saw in the media, it just summed it up. It's a tight year for education. And I think underwhelming. It's that, what a shame. It was a missed opportunity. I think opportunity cost, opportunity lost in terms of our secondary spend in particular. They have made a serious investment in secondary. Only time will tell if it will actually be money well spent. My sense is that it could have been more fiscally responsible to take the time to review and improve. I don't think we needed to get airdropped a Lamborghini when actually what we want is a really trusty, electric vehicle that will see us through and be the sustainable, sensible option. I'm running out of card metaphors.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight on this kind of budget special. It's really nice to be able to call on people like yourself that are kind of in the detail and help kind of bring.
Oh, look, did we have one? We had one haiku from Barb. Bad deal for learners. Nothing teachers have asked for. The workbooks won't help. There we go. 10 points. 10 points. 10 points, Barb. No Toyotas. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. Thank you, Jessie. Thank you, Kelly, before you. And thank you, Liam, who managed to do this after a day of moving house. Big ups to everyone. Have a fantastic evening. And we will see you all online for school briefs early next week. Ka kite.
Ka kite.